Okay, good evening to everyone who's here joining us today. My name is Lisa Partida with Home Again LA, and tonight we have Tom Fuentes with Bank of California. We're just going to be going over a brief presentation on building your financial future. So I'll go ahead and pass it along to Tom.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so tonight we have Building Your Financial Future. We're going to go over three sections. We may go into a brief part of the fourth, but maybe not. We'll see because this is kind of very specific. But in our first section, we're going to talk about assets and asset building. So we're going to discuss what assets are, why assets are beneficial, how assets can help you build your financial future, and how you can develop a plan to do this. So the key takeaway from the first section is that assets can lead to wealth and financial security. But in order to understand this, we kind of need to go over the basics. So first, we're going to talk about what an asset actually is. So an asset is something that you own that has value. For something to be an asset, you must own it, and you must be able to control it and be able to make decisions about it. For assets that are not money, which we're going to go over specifically towards the end, you must be able to exchange them for money. Um, think about this as asset as like education as an asset, something like that. Um, so as we talk about different types of assets, you'll see in the participants guide that there's some things that are listed that can help you determine what you have as assets personally. So there's different kind of things too, and this is funny that we're talking about this right now because um, one of the things that I mentioned in passing in some of our other workshops is that just kind of as a side thing that I like to do for fun, I buy and sell um, sports cards online. Um, so if you talk to someone like my dad, for example, he would he would tell you that his baseball cards are absolutely an asset um, because he owns them physically. You can exchange them for money. So yeah, I mean, let's consider like baseball cards as an alternative physical asset, if you will, because it kind of fits our criteria, doesn't it? Another physical asset could be something like your car too. We'll get into that more specifically. But anyway, we're kind of really talking about financial assets, examples like cash that you own, money that's in your checking and savings account. If you own any stocks or bonds as well. There's productive assets too. So productive assets help produce more assets that will help you earn money. So, for example, investing in education and training to build your skills may help you find a higher paying job. Um, Tools that you use to earn money, such as equipment for maybe you do a side business where you do like lawn care, for example. That would be a productive asset, you investing in the machinery necessary in order to do that job. Skills can be productive assets too. You could be bilingual, for example. Some job opportunities will pay you more if you're able to speak both Chinese and English, for example. Yeah, so um, as an asset's value is determined based on the type of asset it is. So physical assets are values based on what the resale value is. Can we about like baseball cards, for example? That physical asset in that particular sports player, if you will, only has value if you're able to resell it. But physical assets can also go down in price. You can think another physical asset is that some people invest in gold, for example. That's a tangible physical asset, but that you're able to resell. But you could also lose value in it depending on what it's priced at currently. Financial assets have actual value. Like when I have a $20 bill in my pocket, it's worth $20. Productive assets offer benefits that are generally not reflected in a dollar amount, but more of like what it can be worth based on what you're using it to get more value out of, to get more money out of. So we won't cover this right now, but in the participant guide after the workshop, you can go through. There's a list of a whole bunch of different items, and you're able to categorize them on whether or not you think they're an asset or not. And then it's going to just be yes, it is, no, or it depends, and then you can put notes on what it would be. So uh, let me give you one for an example. A new computer, is that an asset? Sure, a new computer can be an asset because you can use it to find a new job. You can use it to uh, find a checking account at a bank or a loan. You can use it for school. Um, what about like a credit card? Is that an asset? Maybe. It depends. I would probably say no. It's a physical item. It's a plastic card. So it kind of doesn't fit in the physical asset category that we had. I mean, it could kind of. It could be considered a productive asset. Remember, we talked about like if you did a side gig and you needed to buy equipment because maybe you cleaned pools, for example, to invest and you didn't have enough money from savings to invest in new equipment or machinery to do that job. Maybe, so maybe credit card depends. But yeah, so go through, there's a whole bunch of different items in the participant guide that you can go through and think yes, no, maybe, and then write some notes on why you think. And then in the participant guide too, there's another apply it where you can identify my assets, what I physically have. I would implore you to do this because you may not realize some of the things that you may have that could be kind of alternative physical assets that you may be like, wait a minute, like I didn't even think about that. I'll give you another side example too, other than like the baseball card thing. One of the other things too is that some things that maintain their value pretty well that you're able to resell would be something like if you have a watch. And it doesn't even matter how much the watch costs, to be quite honest with you. For whatever reason, watches retain value pretty well. I don't think you can like make money in buying them and flipping them, but if you have a watch, for example, or jewelry, for example, that's something that usually can retain value. So yeah, just fill out what you have that you think would be assets that you have. It can be physical assets that your family has. It could be financial assets, but fill it out because you may identify things that you didn't realize actually had value. So now that we kind of understand what we can identify as assets, let's talk about the benefits of why we even want to build assets in the first place, right? So asset building refers to strategies that increase the financial, physical, and productive assets that you own. The strategies may increase the value of assets you already have or help you acquire new assets. Being financially secure means you can take care of yourself and your family even if unexpected things happen. Financial security requires both income and assets. Job losses, an accident or illness, the breakdown of a car, or needing to take an extended time off from work are examples of potentially unexpected events that may require you to have extra money. Assets provide a financial cushion to help you manage these unexpected events as they come about. You can think of assets as the foundation for your financial future. Assets are essential to achieving long-term financial stability and growing wealth. So owning assets creates a buffer to help you and your families handle emergencies and hardships. You could have a reduction in hours at work. You could have a job loss. You may own your own business and business may be slow. Um, um, you may have a refrigerator that goes out that you need um, to repair or replace. So anytime anything unexpected comes about, having assets put aside can kind of create that cushion for you. They can also, owning assets helps you reach your goals too. It's easier to further your education, buy a house, have income in retirement, or start a business if you have assets set aside. Owning assets increases your options. Assets provide you with options, more choices for education, more choices for healthcare, for where you want to live, the size of television that you want to buy, so on and so forth, those kind of things. Owning assets helps you earn more income and succeed in the job market. Owning a physical asset like a car can increase your income and jobs prospects because you have the ability to reliably get to from point A to point B on time. So, for example, you can accept a higher paying job even if it's further away because you have that asset of a car. Um, and but maybe we don't have the ability to own a car. There's always public transit too, but it's the idea is that owning assets opens up more options and ability for you. Productive assets like education and skills can help you earn more income already too. We kind of already talked about that. Owning assets inspires you to look to the future and make long-term plans. So having assets and a plan to build more assets can encourage you to meet your goals. Thinking about the future can motivate you to plan for it. Owning assets reduces stress for you and your family. Households with at least 2,000 in assets that can easily be converted to cash are less likely to forego doctor's visits or the ability to make utility payments compared to those with fewer assets. That's from a Washington, D.C. Study. Families who have assets feel less stress, and money is stressful. Knowing that you have assets can provide you the peace of mind that you need. Many people pass their assets on to family members too. So the ideal of building family security for the long haul, even after you leave this earth, for example. Developing my plan. How we're going to do this, building it, right? This isn't the participant guide. So having a strategy to build assets in all three areas, physical, financial, productive, is an important part in strengthening the financial foundation that you're laying down for financial security for the future. So this is an activity that you can do after the workshop, but these are some of the questions that we're going to be asking as you would fill this out on your own time. So the activity is going to help you consider these things. And in essence, in posing the questions and answering the questions, it's going to help you better come up with your own plan so that you know what you're building for. So here's some of the questions that we're considering in the participant guide for this section. What additional assets would help me meet my goals? I'm going to give you a real world example for myself. I find myself in a situation now where I've had the same job for a while. It's great, but I may be looking for a little bit more. So for me right now, one of the things I've been considering is whether or not I can build my asset potential by going back to school. Potentially by me going back to school and using education as an asset may not only open me up for more possibilities with the current company I'm with, but may open a door for an opportunity elsewhere. So that's just a real world example of something I've been thinking as far as a other asset. Um, so that would help me reach my goals, not only in the short term, but in the long term, as far as a career is concerned. So here's another question. What resources do I need to get those assets? What specific steps could I take to get those resources? What are some obstacles that may get in the way of me building these assets? How am I going to manage these obstacles? So your strategy is personal to you. It's not going to be one size fits all. It's not going to be something that is applicable to everyone, right? So for example, if you find yourself right now at the point of life where part of your plan is to buy a house, for example, you need to think about the assets that will help you get the house, right? What are some of those things? Maybe a good credit report and score. The savings required for the down payment. And then the plan that needs to be put in motion so that you can get those as assets, right? So I'll just give you an example. But I think it's important to remember that everyone's different. We all are at different points in our lives, and we have different goals and what we need to do to strategize. So this section will just give you kind of a general idea to kind of help you start that plan that is unique to you because you're answering the questions based on your life, right? Yeah. So in the section closing, assets can lead to wealth and financial security. The first step, though, is we need to identify what we have as assets. So that's the first part in the participant guide that you can do. We're identifying the physical, the financial, okay? And then in order to utilize, now that we know and have identified what those assets are, we're going to build out and strategize that plan, which is what we just talked about. And that will allow laying that foundation, okay? Section 2, we're going to get more into that financial foundation. So we're going to define net worth, explain how it relates to financial security and the ability to meet your financial goals, calculating net worth, identifying strategies for changing it. So in this section 2 key takeaway, we're going to discuss the relationship among assets, liabilities, equity, and net worth. And the key takeaway that we're going to get, net worth is a good measure of your financial stability. Calculate your net worth by subtracting your liabilities, which is the money that you owe others, from your assets. So let's go into some more definitions real quick. Assets, liabilities, and equity. So to understand how assets create wealth, you need to understand how assets are related to liability and equity. So an asset is something that you own that has value. To get assets, you sometimes need to borrow money. So for example, to buy a house or go to college, most people have to get a student loan or a home mortgage. A liability is something you owe others, usually in the form of money. So once you borrow money, you have a liability until you pay it back in full. Many assets, especially financial assets, do not create a liability. You don't have to borrow money to put money in a savings account, set aside money for other goals, create an emergency fund, contribute to a retirement account, so on and so forth. Assets and liabilities are also related to equity. Equity is the value of an asset minus the liability related to that asset. It's the part of the asset that you own outright. So calculating everything, and this is going to be a scenario with Ezra and a car purchase that he has. Ezra needs a car to get to work and to school. He finds a used car at a dealership that's worth $5,000. He's been saving $25 a week for the past 6 months. He now has $600 to use as a down payment. So in this case, Ezra, in purchasing the car's value is $5,000, but he has $600 to use as the down payment. So the liability that Ezra is taking on in order to own the car would be the $5,000 minus the $600 down payment that he has. So as a result of Ezra getting this car, he now has a liability of $4,400, which is money that he owes in the form of the loan. So pretty simple kind of way to understand how the three function together. Let's talk about how this ties into the concept of net worth. Net worth is a measure of your financial wealth. It's assets minus liabilities. So it's what you have left after you pay all of your liabilities. Another way to think of your net worth is equity from all of your assets added together. Your net worth could be positive. It could be negative. It could be zero. A positive net worth means that the value of your assets covers all of your liabilities and there's still money left over. This means you have a cushion for financial emergencies. It's good to have a positive net worth. Zero net worth means that your assets equal your liabilities. That means you have no cushion. That means that it's a wash. You're even. Um, a negative net worth means that your liabilities are greater than your assets. You do not have a cushion at all. So, like we said, we can find ourselves in a whole bunch of different situations, um, but understanding net worth allows you at least to have some measurement of where you're at. Now, in calculating it, right? Um, 3 steps. Step one, and this will be in the participant guide on the next slide, but let's talk about this real quick. Calculating net worth. Okay, step one, list financial and physical assets and their values, then add them up, and that's going to be the total of your assets. Productive assets are intangible, so it's not going to be included. Okay, so we're talking about financial and physical. Step two, list your liabilities and the amounts that you owe, then add them up, and that's your total liabilities. And then step three, calculate the total assets minus the total liabilities, and voila, that is going to be your net worth. And then we have a scenario in the participant guide where we're talking about Justine, and we're going to calculate her net worth. Now, this is something that you can do after the workshop in the participant guide, but this is a scenario of calculating just how we discussed all of her assets, all of her liabilities, and what she has left over. This is after going through all of her assets in the participant guide. We have 141,000, and the total liabilities that we have for her 119. So with total assets minus total liabilities, her net worth is 22,000. And you can see all of the line items in the participant guide for this scenario, so you can see how it was calculated. In this case, there was a $2,000 car as an asset, $130,000 owed on a house, 7,000 in personal possessions, including jewelry. That's how we got the 141. And then the 119 was from bills due, from credit card balances, from a student loan, and from a vehicle loan. Okay. Changes in net worth. So increasing your net worth. You can increase your net worth by increasing your assets or decreasing liabilities, or both. So there are some specific ways in doing this. Spend less than you make. Sounds simple. It's tough, though. I mean, there's so many pressures to spend money on things that we don't need. People refer to this as, living within your means. If you spend less than you make, you can put yourself in a better situation to save money. Buy less than you can afford. When buying homes, cars, furniture, computers, electronics, and other kind of things, buy less than you can afford. It'll provide flexibility and prevents you from becoming overstretched financially. Save money. Building savings is building an asset. So save for emergencies that can help you with your goals as well. And participate in retirement if you have the ability. Money you save in taxes, like a 401k or a Roth IRA, for example, can help. If your employer matches some of your 401k contributions or your retirement contributions, you can save more because your company's matching what you're putting in. You should be using debt responsibly. Remember that using a credit card creates a liability because it ends up being money that you have to owe back. So spend wisely. Pay down debts if you have the ability to. When you pay down debts, you're reducing your overall total liabilities. So that's a way of reducing your liabilities. When you reduce liabilities, your net worth increases. claim tax credits if you're able to. Um, One of the things that's important now, because we're getting into tax time, is that you may qualify for tax filing help, for example. So if you make $60,000 or less annually, you qualify what's called the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program from the IRS. It's called VITA, and you can get your taxes done for free. Um, so that's pretty cool. That's a good way to save money. Filing taxes is kind of expensive, so look into that if you meet the income requirements for it. You can build more assets. Economic security can come in the form of buying stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, that kind of thing, if you have the ability to. The other thing that's interesting too is shop around. I mean, not all products are built the same, priced the same. Make sure that you're doing your due diligence, that if you're going to make a big purchase, look at product reviews, make sure that you're putting in the time necessary and understanding what you're buying, right? Yeah. So that is increasing net worth. And at the end of section 2, so net worth is a good measure, and it's a good tool to use to see where you're at financially. Calculate your net worth by subtracting your liabilities, which is the money that you owe others from your assets, and that'll give you kind of a good bellwether of where you're at. We're not going to get into the last 2 sections. We're not going to stop right here, but we're going to stop in a couple of minutes. The reason I don't want to cover them is because they're very specific. So the next 2 sections, as I'm going to show you, is thinking of using cars as assets. And then the last section is using education as an asset. Now, these 2 things are like super specific, okay? But I just wanted to give the overall understanding, at least broadly, of why we can consider it. And we kind of already talked about it, which is another reason why I don't want to cover these sections in great detail. But one of the things that we've already discussed is thinking of using a car as a physical asset. And this will be for 2 reasons, okay? The first reason is the car actually has monetary value. And we saw that from the participant guide where I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's buying a car for $5,000. He has a $600 down payment. He's creating a liability of $4,400 because it's money he owes in the form of a loan. But that car is a physical asset. So that's one reason. 2, we're using that physical asset as a productive asset. And this is what we can do with it, and especially correlates with that scenario. He's using that car to get to work. He's using that car to get to school. Okay. So it's a productive asset because he's using it for the purpose of going to work to get a paycheck, but also going to school with the idea of furthering his education so that he may get a promotion at work as a result of whatever degree he's going for, or getting another job altogether. So that's kind of how we can kind of think about cars as assets, and why we're not going to go specifically into the section. And then the last section is, again, specific, which is using training and education as assets. And we kind of already talked about this. This is one of those productive assets that we can use that can increase our ability to get more assets, right? That can then allow us to increase our net worth, right? But it's important to remember, just like with the car scenario, if you don't have the money on hand to pay for that education, we have to create a liability because we have to borrow money in order to put this productive asset to use. And training and education can be productive asset because these are things that we're doing in order to unlock the possibility for us to increase our ability to build assets by getting a new job, getting promoted, finding a new career altogether, getting the training necessary that will allow us to get into that career specifically. So yeah, so this is definitely the productive asset because it's Very specific though, didn't want to cover it completely. Um, but in closing, what I will say is understanding the first step in this whole picture is first listing your assets out. And in the participant guide, you're able to do that. Second thing, listing out all the liabilities so you can figure out all the things that you owe. When you have these listed out, you now have that building block necessary in order for you to understand what your net worth is. Once you're able to add everything up and then subtract the two and get that number, it'll give you that financial bellwether to figure out where you're at currently. And then once you can figure out where you're at currently, is where you can then start manipulating the ways of increasing net worth, because that's our goal, by implementing the plan and strategy that we have in the participant guide as well. Okay. So that brings us to the conclusion of building your financial future. I hope that kind of helps and maybe unlock some things that maybe you didn't identify before, and can help you at least start the plan that you would need to get started.
All right. Thank you so much, Tom, as always. So I'm pretty sure this information was very useful. And if you guys need the participant guide, feel free to email me and I'll send it over your way. All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Lisa. Have
you.
a good night.
Have a good night. All right. Bye.
Bye.